Good day, good day. Hello, everybody. I'm excited. A lot of hard work has been put in for this podcast. I cannot wait to start it. This is podcast number, what number are we? 14? I'm looking over at my sound tech person. 13? I don't know how to count fingers. Today, we're going to be talking about insurance, something that confuses me more than anything, but yet I pay for a lot. I am honored to have Lou Magill on today. Lou, hello. Thank you for joining me. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. Basically, I've been in the financial services game now 50 years. So it's been a long trek. I've done a lot within that time. And about 17 years ago, at the age of 53, I had a near fatal heart attack, and that is what prompted me ultimately to get into health insurance, because I realized at that point in time how important it was, and most specifically that anything can happen to anyone at any time. At the time that I had my heart attack, I was 53 years old and competing in 2 Olympic sports. So I was not exactly out of shape, but you can have things happen to you at any time. And I've seen it, since I've been in the profession, I've seen it happen more and more.
What Olympic sports were you in?
I was a dressage rider, picked up hopefully where I left off. Many years ago, I was qualified for the United States equestrian team back in 1968 for Mexico City. And I was out of the equestrian world for about 25 years. And then when I retired at the age of 52, I decided to get back into that, which I did. And the other one was fencing. I'd always wanted to fence, and so I got into fencing, which is an Olympic sport as well as is the equestrian art of dressage.
Wow. I know what fencing is. I'm not quite sure if I know what the other one is, but what you're saying is you're a very,
I can tell you.
very, very dangerous with the sword.
Yes, I was pretty good. I rose through the ranks fairly quickly there. In the case of dressage, a lot of people don't know what that means, but if they've ever seen the Lipizzan stallions, that is dressage.
Awesome. Okay. We could talk all day about Lou's background and his experience. Just to touch on it, he had a big deal with the stock market and how it evolved, the advancing of trading online, to be a little bit more specific. But today, and we might even do we might do a podcast just for that because it's so interesting. Today, we're talking about something very important. Lou has saved me and my wife and my family a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. Lou is an insurance rep for Phoenix Rising Benefit Group, if I'm not saying that right. And
that's correct, Benefits Group.
He just doesn't do health insurance. He also does life insurance, and as you can see, a list of other things he is experienced in. So today we're going to talk about health insurance. Lou's going to go over, there's going to be an open enrollment period. I'm a realtor. Jeff of All Trades is the podcast. Today's about health insurance. As you know, realtors are 1099. We do not get taxes taken out. We have to pay Uncle Sam. So therefore, the employer doesn't offer us health insurance. So he's going to go over the benefits of getting health insurance when you are a 1099, and it's not, and how easy it is, and how he makes it a much easier than going through an employer or just trying to go through the Obamacare and so forth. Nothing against that, but there's other avenues. Take it from there, Lou.
Okay, Jeff. Basically, I think it's important for us to have a little bit of getting on the same page routine here so that everybody understands what some of the basics are in the health insurance area. There are basically 3 types of health insurance. There is what's called major medical insurance. There are only 2 ways to get major medical insurance. One is through Obamacare, and the other is through a company that you work for, what's called a group plan. So if you're working for a company, and about 80% of America is working for a corporation and has group benefits, but the other 20% does not. The third part of the, if you will, the puzzle of health insurance that's available is basically what's called faith-based insurance. And these are organizations that are essentially Christian-based organizations for the most part, and they offer insurance because they are exempt from the rules, the federal rules of the Affordable Care Act. So those are the three basic forms. So if some people may have heard of some of the faith-based, I'm going to deal with that subject real fast. I don't really sponsor or promote faith-based. The thing that you have to watch out for in faith-based insurance is an understanding of the fact that they are under no obligation to pay any claims.
Oh, wow.
There is no obligation, basically. And there are several organizations. All of them are different. So if you want to go that direction, do the research. But understand that you're looking, when they say, well, it's only $75 a month for a family of four, understand that you have an obligation to also pay more in the event that claims are submitted to that organization. They pray over them, and then they distribute them to their members. And on a voluntary basis, they can put in however much money they want toward it. And whatever they're able to collect is what they will pay for your medical bills. So if you have a heart attack and your bills are $150,000, you may or may not get those paid. So that's the religious faith-based type of insurance. Some people may have heard of that. The primary part of insurance is either ACA, also known as Obamacare, or private insurance, which is essentially short-term medical insurance. Now, it's not really short-term anymore because now, as of this year, we can go up to 3 years. That is an area of insurance which is underwritten. Now, what does that mean by underwritten? That means that you're going to make an application, you're going to submit that application, and the insurance company makes a decision as to whether or not you're an appropriate risk. Let me give you an example for the most part. If you have diabetes, you probably are not going to be able to qualify to get short-term medical insurance. Let's switch over to the ACA, Obamacare. Obamacare was intended originally back in 2014 to be a low-cost opportunity for people to get health insurance even with pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
That's not the way it worked out.
No.
From 2014 on, insurance companies lost money.
Pause that right there. You said something mind-blowing. Okay. Lou has a lot of information, people. His link, his phone number, all of his information is going to be down. This podcast has a lot of information. So if you miss any, just set up a meeting, set up a phone call meeting with Lou, who will go over with you. Lou, say that again. Obamacare was supposed to be for non-existing something. Say that part again, but it's not.
Okay. Well, it was supposed to be a relatively low-cost option, and it was part of the law, the ACA, which required what was called the individual mandate. This meant that every individual in the United States must be covered by health insurance. This was their plan to allow all sorts of people with pre-existing conditions, no conditions at all, healthy people, everybody to get together, and it was going to be low-cost insurance for everybody. And that's not the way it worked out. It didn't work out very well for the insurance companies either. In the first 3 years, insurance companies that were involved lost billions of dollars. The government lost billions of dollars, and the rates each year from about 2014 to 2018 were going up at the rate of anywhere, depending upon where you are in the country, anywhere from 17 to 25, 30%.
Oh, yeah.
So it was not exactly working out the way that the administration had hoped or thought that it would.
And a lot of doctors canceled, right? A lot of doctor offices
Yes.
and groups just cancel. You cannot.
Yes.
You owe us money. We don't. Not that they stopped taking you. They canceled your insurance and then said you owe me money because they're not. We canceled it going backwards. Just a lot of.
Yes. Right, and that apparently was your experience.
Yes.
And it's not uncommon. Doctors left and right, and people would say, well, you're on the directory as accepting this company's insurance program, but you're saying that no, well, those directories are out of date in most cases. So a doctor could have said, no, we're not taking, and in fact, actually many doctors have a sign right on the window as you go in there. We do not accept any Obamacare plans. And that's been a very common situation. To bring it down to your listeners, in my opinion, the only people that really should be getting Obamacare are those with pre-existing conditions. They pretty much have no choice. And those who are getting subsidies. Now, who's going to get a subsidy? If you're an individual with an income of less than $45,000, you will be able to get a subsidy. But do not go below $15,000 because then they will tell you to go to Medicaid. And Medicaid is pretty much a disaster. It's the last resort type of health insurance. So if you are going to be able to get a subsidy, in all likelihood, you will probably be able to get a decent plan at a decent price. But understand this, whatever plan you get in ACA is going to be, for the most part, an HMO. Now, I don't know if your listeners understand the difference, but there are various categories of insurance. You have what's called a POS, which is point of service. You have an EPO, which is an exclusive provider network organization. You have an HMO, which is the majority, called a health maintenance organization, and you have a PPO, and that is a preferred provider organization. What you want to get is a PPO, and the reason for that is the networks that you have available to you are much larger. Okay, so you have a greater likelihood that your doctor is going to be included in the network. And that is a particularly important point. If you walk into the doctor's office, give them your card, it may have the insurance company's name on it, and they say, well, we don't take that insurance. We've never heard of them before. Understand that what the doctor's office, any provider, hospital, doctor, anyone, what they know is the network. So they know which networks they are signed up with. And in the case of an HMO, which I'm now going a little bit backwards, since that's the majority of ACA, HMOs have much more limited network capability. So you need to check that network for that particular insurance policy on Obamacare to tell you whether or not your doctor is going, or your doctors are going to be in network. In addition to that, an HMO is state-specific and sometimes even county-specific. So if you have an HMO and you travel to Antilles for Thanksgiving up in New Jersey and something happens other than an emergency, you are not going to be covered. And that is something that a lot of people get surprised about. If it's an emergency, yes, you will be covered. So, and a PPO is nationwide. You can go to any doctor anywhere. That's the difference, the big difference between an HMO and a PPO. Two major differences. One has a larger network than the other, and the PPO is also nationwide. You can travel anywhere and have a doctor in network available to you. So now, other than that, if you do not have a pre-existing condition and you're not going to get a subsidy, you're probably in all likelihood have a better chance. Sorry about that. You probably have a better chance with what's called short-term medical. Short-term medical plans were originally devised to provide those who leave one company and go to another but can't get any insurance for about 3-4 months. This was a way of providing short-term gap insurance for that time period that they're not. However, it expanded for a while, but then under Obama, he limited to 3 months. So he basically put the shackles. He put the shackles on that short-term medical in order to force people to go to the ACA. That's how he expected to get all of these healthy people involved. Because a healthy person really doesn't want Obamacare. They want a short-term medical plan. Short-term medical plans come in just about every flavor you can imagine. And they have all sorts of different features, and they can pretty much meet whatever your specific needs are. The needs of an individual who's single and 28 are going to be much different than a family of 4 in their late 30s or early 40s. Mm-hmm. So this is where the broker comes in, is to understand your needs, to understand what your situation is, and thereby go out into the universe of available plans and find that which will best suit your needs and your budget. So
that's a lot of information. Normally I do a breakdown of what the guest says. Lou, I can't even touch that. Guys, this information is going to be in the links. Please set up a phone call. This is why I have Lou as my health insurance rep. I did not know that Lou existed. Me and Lou go to Toastmasters, just like Alex McGriff. He was on a podcast a couple episodes ago about Aflac. He's also in Toastmasters. Lou's in Toastmasters, been in there a lot longer than I have. And Lou is a gentleman that can find the best policy. Just as a realtor, I'm a real estate agent. My job is to either find you the best house or sell your house. So Lou will work for you in that same sense. He said 3 different health insurance. There's not going to be a quiz at the end of this. I can't even joke and say that because there's just so much information. But the insurance has changed dramatically. A lot of stuff has happened to me and my family. A lot of extra fees and frustrating things when you have a baby, then you have another baby. And Lou has really saved us big time in going through this. My wife would spend maybe 25 hours trying to figure out every single year to get us on a new plan because the plans cancel. And if you have this same situation or been in that same situation, Lou is the person that can step in and find the best plan for you. And we're saving. Our deductible went from like some crazy $6,000 number to I think $2,000 or $25,000. I'm not sure. My wife handles that, but it's a lot less. I know that. So,
1,000.
1,000. See,
1,000.
See, Lou, like that's insane, and you cannot get this on your own. So Lou talked about 3 different types of health insurance, broke them down. The Obamacare isn't what it was supposed. It just didn't. It didn't work out. It didn't work out the way it was supposed to work out. I am a 1099. So Lou, go into the where like you don't spec. I'm sure you go to companies. So how someone like me, I'm a 1099. Those are the 3 different plans we can pick from, correct? And you're gonna pick.
That's correct.
Pretty much, you're gonna pick the best one. It's not us. You're gonna say, hey, based off of how many times you go to the doctor, this is what plan fits you. Now, let's say if someone's working at a job and they have health insurance with that job, can they still go with you and get health insurance and cancel that health insurance? Like, what's the benefits of having why does it seem better when someone has a job that offers health insurance versus someone that has a 1099 and that has to get it on their own? Why is there such a gap between that?
Okay, that's a very good question, and one that I answer very directly, and much to the surprise of a lot of people. I would never try to convince anyone to come off of a corporate or group plan. That is major medical, and that is the most comprehensive insurance, health insurance that you can get. Now, that's not to say that some corporations and some companies have better plans than others. They do. They come in a wide variety. Some people do not like their health plan at all. Every employee does have the right to waive inclusion in the plan. There are a number of people that will waive. Let's say the husband works for one company, the wife works for another company. The wife's plan is richer and better and at better value than the husband's plan at his company. That might be typically a much smaller company. As a result, he says, no, I'm not going to take my health insurance from my company, but I'm going to go on to my wife's plan. Now, what people have to understand about group insurance is that the employer is obligated to pay 50% minimum, 50% of the premium for every employee. Just the employee, not the family.
Oh, so is the premium the monthly premium? The monthly premium?
Yes.
Okay.
The monthly premium is, that is what if you have over 50 employees, you are obligated to provide health insurance, and you are obligated to have to pay 50%. And there are certain participation rules, but that dives too deep into the weeds for this conversation.
Okay, I have a question. Hold. We'll pause. We'll stay right there. When Obamacare came out, I don't know how many years ago, 4, 3, 4, 5, I don't know.
5 years ago.
Why did the employers, companies, get so, I don't want to say freaked out, but they kind of like panicked. And, I heard their company and Disney, they were going to have to lay off, I don't want to say Disney, I'm not saying Disney, but there's a company in Orlando that was talking about having to lay off all these people because now they have to pay more. How did Obamacare cost companies more money when it came out, and that's why there was such a kickback from the companies? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I remember there being such a big issue when it rolled out, and all these companies either were forced to do something or forced to pay more. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember that?
Yes. No, I do understand what you're talking about, because the Affordable Care Act came out with regulations that applied to all companies as to what they had to do.
Oh.
And that's where that 50% requirement came in. That's where
it wasn't 50% before? So there wasn't a required amount that the companies had to pay before that made it mandatory?
I don't know before Obamacare as to whether that requirement existed or not. That was about the time that I came into the industry.
Okay.
And so what happened before was like another world in the corporate market, in the group market. And also, you mentioned it earlier, as far as what I do, I help and work with individuals, families, business owners, and in businesses with employees. So I do group insurance as well.
Okay.
And
so
that may be a topic for another day.
Over 50, please. So
I specialize basically in companies that are 20 to 50 employees.
Okay.
I have a lot more flexibility. There are a lot more new plans, new ideas, new concepts that have come in over the past year or two. So there's a lot more flexibility in the under 50 market than there is in the over 50 market. But even so, there is quite a bit of flexibility, not the one size fits all that has been historically the case in most group insurance. However, many groups offer 2, 3, sometimes even 4 different plans, and the poor employee has to figure out how to select which plan is best for them, and that's a difficult task because health insurance is an extremely confusing area.
Yes, yes, and thank God I'm happy I don't specialize in it. You can have that, Lou. You can take it. You can run with it. I have a question. I worked for a company. Well, I don't know how accurate this is. We'll just use that as an example. Could one person that works for the company, let's say they got cancer, they had cancer, they got cancer, they came through it, and could one person raise the rate for everybody else? Let's say in a company that has 20 employees or 15 employees or 20 to 50. Could one person health issues make it super expensive for everybody else to get health insurance?
The answer is yes, if they already have a plan.
Okay.
If they already have a plan, the answer is yes, because the claims experience that a company has is what determines what their rate's going to be next year. Okay? So if their employees are filing a lot of claims, next year's rate for the same exact plan is going to be significantly more expensive.
Okay, yeah, okay. I saw that. Keep in mind, I've been 1099 since I was, I don't know, a long time, 15, 17, 20 years. So, but I've seen that. Another question, let's say I'm fixing to have a kid. I don't have health insurance. I'm 1099. Just like Lou said, if you can have a group plan with a company, do that. And if it makes sense, he can still talk to you about it and answer questions about it. What do the insurance companies look for? Is there a basic plan that you kind of start with? And is there a basic amount? And what do insurance companies look for? I know my personal situation, they're depending how many doctors you go to, how many doctors you've seen, or how many times you've been in the emergency room. Like when you go to look for health insurance, what type of screening or test or, it's like you said, one plan doesn't fit everybody. Like what questions would you want to ask? What would you recommend to somebody to say, okay, look at this, look at that, look at this?
Okay, that is a question that would probably take a month of Sundays to answer in its entirety. But you brought up one situation. For example, if you're going to have a child, planning on having a child, pregnant already, the short-term marketplace will not cover you. Okay,
wow.
That is something that is not covered in short-term medical. So you would have to go to either your corporate plan, if you have one. If you do not have one, then the ACA is your best bet. Because in the ACA, those plans, it's major medical, which means they have to, by law, cover everybody and every situation.
Oh, wow.
Now, other than that, I basically find out what everybody's individual situation is. And from that, as I said before, I put together essentially a plan, a program.
Okay.
Now, this may be a combination of a short-term medical insurance, also what's called gap insurance, which means that's going to take care of the deductible. And this is what most people that your listeners need to focus on. Okay. What is your deductible? What is your co-insurance? All right. Co-insurance is stated as a percentage. It is the first percentage mark. If it's an 80-20, that means that after you've fulfilled your deductible, the insurance company pays 80%, and then you pay 20%. It could be a 70-30, 80-20. I typically go for 100% co-insurance on most of mine.
So that's all. Okay, pause that. I had no idea what that was until I get a whole bunch of bills in the mail. So if you, let's pretend you've never had insurance or someone else handles it, or insurance is complicated. So what Lou's talking about is you have a deductible. You might have to pay money until that deductible is met to go to a doctor. That doctor, you might not be able just to pay the copay. But let's say you need x-rays because your wife's pregnant and they have to do x-rays every time they go in there, or ultrasound, they have to do an ultrasound. But the ultrasound has to go towards the deductible. The insurance doesn't pay for it. It has to go towards the deductible, and then they'll pay for it. Once you hit your deductible, let's say it's $1,000, which that's new to me. That's brand new. Lou just hooked us up, took care of us. It used to be like a whole bunch more, maybe 5 times that. Then it goes to that co-insurance, which is like, what are you talking about? I just paid $5,000. Now I got to pay you more money. They're only going to cover 80% of the bill or 70% of the bill, whatever that 70, 20, 20, 80, 20, they cover the big number. You're still responsible for that tiny number. And that's if you don't know what you're doing and you sign up for something and it's 50-50 and you're paying, like, that's a lot of money because you're going to hit that deductible. You might have a low deductible and then that number is higher. That's a big deal. You want to look at that. What is it called again? Cover or
coinsurance?
Coinsurance. So that's
coinsurance. And then you also mentioned copays. One important thing that people need to know about copays is that copay only goes to the cost of the doctor visit. So if a doctor's visit is $125 and you've got a $40 copay, that $40 covers that. But if he does blood tests, if he does an ultrasound, if he does an EKG, if he does anything other than just a routine exam, you're going to have that as part of your bill, and you're responsible for that. And as you said, it will go to your deductible.
That's huge. That's huge. Now,
there's one other point that I would like to make, because it's something that absolutely blindsides people. And that is, and it's, I'm drilling down here, and maybe 90% of your people will never experience this. But if you go,
everybody's people.
If you're going in for surgery, elective surgery,
okay,
make sure that you find out the name of every single doctor that's going to be in that operating room.
Okay.
And make sure that each and every one of them is in the network. Otherwise, you could be surprised with literally thousands of dollars worth of bills, because when you're under, you don't know who's in that operating room. And let me give you the one that is the glaring example. Find out who the anesthesiologist is. The anesthesiologist typically does not, or oftentimes is not in your network. And all of a sudden, you've got a bill for $7,000 for anesthesiology. This is something that has to be checked out ahead of time. So when you're going in for elective surgery, make sure you know that every doctor that's going to be in that room is in network. And make sure the hospital is told, here's my insurance. They're going to know your insurance ahead of time. Make sure that everybody's in that network.
Have you had that happen before? Has that happened to a past client before?
It's happened to a client. It's also happened to me.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Remember, I've had 12 heart operations.
And that's, touch on that a little bit. That's why, that's kind of your passion. Lou told me that at the beginning, and he said, Jeff, I don't need to do this. I could be doing something else. I'm doing this to help others. And that's a big deal. When someone has a big why on why they do things, Lou did well in the stock market. Online trading invented the process on how some of it's done. That's another podcast, because I'm super interested in finding out more about that. But Lou's doing this so other people, and Lou spends a lot of time helping people, getting them set up. And if you didn't know that you can have a representative to go over all the bills when you have to owe someone money and they're sending you these bills and you're like, wait a minute, why am I paying for this? Lou's there to double check and say, hey, that's not correct. The doctor's doing this. Because I feel that the doctors, nothing against the doctors, they're not doing it, but whoever their third-party billing system or their office manager, I feel like they make a lot of mistakes. I feel there's a lot of mistakes made. Things are sent to the insurance company and no one's figuring it out. And then the customer gets a bill. It's a couple $100. They just pay it. I know that's happened to us quite a bit. And it's the doctor not inputting the reason why you're going to the doctor the correct way. And Lou's there to help you with that. Going back.
You raise a very good point there. And that is, it's not really the doctor's fault necessarily. It could be. But it's the billing department that, whether they outsource their billing or whether they have a billing third party, or even internally. It doesn't really make any difference. But a very important part is how it is coded, because that's what the insurance company is looking at. How is this coded? And if it is coded one way, it gets covered. If it's coded another way, it may not get covered. So coding is important. Unfortunately, virtually no patient has the ability to discern what that coding system is. So that's another reason to have. Yeah, that's another reason to have a broker, because, for example, I've gotten your what are called EOBs, which are explanation of benefits, and I've had to go through them, and every company that processes that does it differently. So it's basically like reading the Rosetta Stone every time you get them in, and trying to figure it out. But then again, you also call the insurance company and say, hey, what's going on here? And we all have representatives that we can contact. We leave a lot of voicemail messages. We ask for return calls and don't get them. So I spend a significant part of my time actually working on client issues where there are questions as to the accuracy of the billing that was done, or the reason for a decline. And for example, I just had a client that went into the doctor for a regular visit, and the diagnosis was allergies. Problem is, the person has never experienced any allergies in the past, but that's what the doctor gave the diagnosis for and gave a medication for, even though she has never had it. And on that plan, she's been on that plan for over a year, never had a problem. So now I'm going to the insurance company because they're calling that a pre-existing condition. And I know from personal experience that allergies can develop within a very short period of time. They don't have to be something that's been in your body for years. So that's the type of thing where a broker is extremely important, where they can essentially come to the forefront and battle for you, because we understand the industry. We know what tricks that the insurance companies like to pull. Let me just say this really quickly. There is a reason insurance companies are companies that I love to hate. There is a reason why insurance companies and banks and investment companies, that their names are at the top of the biggest buildings in every major city in the United States. Their business model is very simple. We take in as much money as we can, and we let out as little as we can. In the case of insurance, that means they have an underwriting department, and their job is to pay as little in claims as is humanly possible. That's where I am the knight, hopefully in shining armor.
Yes.
But at least with a sword to go after them, because it's ridiculous sometimes the excuses they have for declining a claim.
And it's someone making a mistake. It's somebody not doing something correct because they're either confused or they're new or they're in a different country. I don't want to say whatever country, but it's either a different country. And I know this because I have to talk to them. Guys, what Lou's talking about is you don't need to go at this alone. This isn't going to cost you any more. It's probably going to save you money, a lot of money, in my case, thousands and thousands of dollars. You don't need to call insurance companies and spend hours and hours asking the person on the phone if everything is covered, and then find out 4 months later it never was, because the person on the phone got a new piece of paper the next day that changed all the doctors in the network, and now that doctor's no longer. Or Advent buys a doctor, and then hold on one second. Something's sorry. The company buys it, and then they drop your insurance, and no one tells you for 4 months. I can tell you stories and stories that has happened to us. Lou goes to bat, and we talk to Lou. We don't call the insurance company. We talk to Lou, and Lou cuts a lot of that chaos because Lou knows the situation. So it's a lot easier to fix. That's the point I'm trying to get across. So there's 3 different types of insurance. When you look at insurance, you want to look at the deductible, the co-insurance, maybe the hospital, how much it costs when you stay in a hospital. We're running out of time, so maybe what's what's a couple more things to look at when you're looking at a plan that could save you a lot in the end? I know that's a big question, but maybe one or two.
The thing that is most helpful to any broker is for the client to have a very clear understanding of what it is that they want to accomplish. Every health insurance policy, any type of insurance policy, is basically a balancing act of how much risk you want to assume and how little risk you want to assume and how much do you want to have in insurance to cover that. And that is probably the biggest challenge that we face, is getting the client to fully disclose and understand how much risk they're willing to take and how much risk they need to have covered. So a lot of people want copays. Well, sometimes the cost of that insurance, because it has copays, as a result of that, can be more expensive than if you paid for the visit directly.
Wow. That's very good. Very good. So find out what you're wanting the insurance for, and then make sure, for one, it covers that. I think people don't get insurance until they absolutely need it. I do have a question. Is it?
Yeah, please don't call me up and say that yesterday you had an accident and now you need an accident policy.
And I never cared about it until my wife said, "Hey, we need to have it," and she always had it, and then I got added to hers. But what I was going to say is two things. Open enrollment is starting. Don't wait until the December 1st. Lou's going to come back in December, and we're going to talk about some of this again and go in more detail. But don't wait until then to talk to him and get insurance. What was that other thing? Oh, do you have to have insurance? Is there still a law stating that if you don't have health insurance, you have to pay more money or something like that out of your taxes? Does that still happen?
Okay, very good question. The answer is, and a lot of people don't realize this, the law is still in effect. Every citizen of the United States is required to be covered by health insurance. That is the law. What Trump did was he took the teeth out of the law by eliminating, as of January 1st this year, eliminating the penalty that people would have to pay. So as a result, the law is that it's required, but there's no teeth. They cannot enforce the law. So now one thing I want everybody to understand, if there's a little confusion out there, open enrollment is November 1st to December 15th. If you're going to go into an ACA plan, that is the time period, 6 weeks, that you have to get into one. If you want to go into a short-term medical plan, you do not have to be within that confines. We write short-term medical plans all year long.
What do you mean by short-term medical? Only 6 months medical, or you only need insurance?
No, short-term medical, it is somewhat of a misnomer now, because in the last 2 years, we've gone from a 3-month limit to now many plans are up to 3 years. So we can actually, and when in the 3-year plans that we have, they tend to be a little more expensive, but after the first 12 months, pre-existing conditions are covered. So for year 2 and 3, anything that occurred in year 1 or before is covered.
Wow. Okay, Lou, this was a lot of information. Guys, we're going to have his info in the links. And if you're listening on the podcast, it's going to be in the details as well. If you don't have health insurance, or if you feel like the health insurance that you have, you're just paying a lot of money and you're having to make a lot of phone calls, call Lou and he can evaluate that. And I'm sure if you have something better than what he can get you, he's going to tell you, hey, you got a good deal. Don't mess it up. I feel like there's a lot of 1099 people that are either realtors, salespeople, any type of salesperson that gets paid commission and it's a 1099. You don't have a lot of options. The company doesn't have to give you options, so they really don't educate that. Please call Lou. Talk to him about what options you have and how he can insure your family. And if you're thinking about having a kid, get insurance before your wife gets pregnant. You don't want to be caught off guard. That's some money. So you're saying if the parents are not, none of them have insurance, and the wife and you have a child, you can't get insurance, or it would be harder to get insurance, or there's only a certain plan you can get for the pregnancy.
The only type of plan that you can get if you're a 1099 or whatever, and you have a pregnancy involved, the only type of plan you can get is an ACA plan, but only during the 6 weeks. So if you get pregnant in February,
at the end of the year, so you only have until the end of the year to get insurance.
You only have that 6 weeks to get the ACA insurance, which will cover the pregnancy. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get insurance to cover the pregnancy.
Wow. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Lou, it was an awesome job. As you can hear, I have some noise. Thank you, everybody. Jeff of all trades. I'll see you next week.